Hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys for being here this morning. Welcome to the February edition of the technology. If I'd written a script, I'm already off of it. The Telworx Business Series. uh, Again, want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here in the morning, at least on the West Coast. We may have people joining from other parts of the country, other time zones as well. But thank you guys all for being here. I want to thank the Glendora and Whittier Chambers for their support, not only of this particular series of workshops, but their support of Telworx over the years and everything they do for our local business communities. They're out there working hard and doing a lot for us, and we really appreciate you guys. So with that, the cloud. What is it? Is it secure? Can I trust it with my business? At Telworx, we get questions like that all the time. And we thought it would be helpful to take a little time out and kind of change things up from the normal format of this series to just break down the cloud a little bit for you and answer some of those questions, give you guys the opportunity to ask any other questions that are on your mind, and help kind of demystify the cloud and help you get a better understanding about what it is and how it can really help your business. So no providers this morning, it's just Telworx. With that, you have myself, John, and then significantly of more importance and significant value is the founder and really solutions architect of Telworx, Jesus Arriaga. Jesus has spent the majority of his career in technology. He's got roughly 40 years of experience as a CIO, CTO for hire, as well as being an entrepreneur, which means that he's been in your shoes. He has walked the paths that many of you guys are walking today. He's had to answer a lot of the same questions that you guys are asking. He's dealt with a lot of the same situations you guys are dealing with today. So he's one of the best people that I know to be here to kind of help guide this conversation and answer any questions you guys may have. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesus.
Excellent. Well, thank you, John, and welcome, Christina and Stephen. We also have Candace on this call as well, and Candace is our project coordinator with Telworx, and of course Sue was also one of our technology partners from Technology Source. So welcome. Just a quick background on my end is to add on to what John had mentioned. Yes, I've spent the entire career in technology. I always feel old when I mention it, but I've been in technology for 40 years and going. So I started in technology when it was just punch tape, punch cards. We didn't even have a monitor. It was green and blue bar paper on a teletype. And I've seen technology evolve from that point in time to there being more power in this little thing that we use every single day in our hands than the computers that used to fill huge rooms that I used to work on, and a lot in between that has gone from there with networking, internet, I mean, you name it. I used to remember when the internet started to come out before it was even called the internet. And it evolved from there. I was part of the .com or bomb move during that early phase of the 90s, and saw a lot of acceleration there. So large part of probably 75% of my career has been as a CIO, CTO at various different organizations, as an architect, strategist, and really helping them with their technology. So there's a lot of experience that I bring to Telworx, which is why I started Telworx about 15 years ago or so, and to leverage that to help our customers as well as our potential customers to select the right solutions to help them grow their business, bring some efficiencies, as well as to help them scale, help them with their sales, etc. So let's jump into the whole cloud topic. And today, I definitely wanted to be interactive. So by any chance, if I touch on something that you have a question about, feel free to just unmute and ask the question. You're not going to interrupt me, and I'm not going to get offended by it or anything of that sort. Definitely want to be as interactive as possible. But let's take this whole cloud concept. A lot of us hear it. We see it on commercials. We've heard the concept, oh, you got to use the cloud or get on the cloud. Really, what is the cloud? And how do you harness it for your business? Here's the reality of the cloud, is that even if you're using this, which most likely you are, your smartphone, you are on the cloud, right? So the cloud in general is really a fancy word for basically stating that an application or a technology, some sort of technology, is hosted someplace else other than right on your premise, in your office, in a closet somewhere, or even in your home. It's somewhere else. It exists somewhere else, but you're accessing it via the internet through some other device, whether it be your phone, whether it be a tablet, whether it be your computer, your laptop, some sort of smart tablet. You're basically accessing it over the internet. In technology, I've seen it over the years. We love to come up with our acronyms for different technologies that come up. We love to come up with concepts. I remember the whole quote cloud was evolving, and back in the day, it was known as an acronym called ASP, Application Service Provider. And that was a way of hosting an application somewhere else on a series of bunch of different technologies and servers and allowing people to access that. But it was really before its time, and it failed pretty miserably, and it kind of went back into hiding until it could come out when technology was a little bit more mature, and it started to mature from there. And to move from that concept to hosted, so that concept of hosting your application someplace was what evolved and came out of that. And that over the last couple of years evolved to now the cloud, because it's more than just an application. It's just about every single technology you can imagine that can be or exist in the cloud. And the concept of the cloud now is that there are two components to it. One, the technology itself is hosted someplace. Somebody actually has that on physical servers. It does exist on physical servers. It's not just some nebulous, thing that exists out there that's not controlled. It is sitting somewhere on a series of physical servers and technology in some sort of data center someplace around the world. And how you access that is via an internet connection, anytime, anyplace, anywhere. And that's the beauty of this whole cloud concept, is that cloud or cloud applications or cloud technologies, if we want to put it all into that concept, really is an ability or a way to access some technology that you use via an internet connection. And you're not dependent on having equipment, which typically can be fairly expensive, at your office, in your home, in order to house this type of functionality. To all you need is a connection. You could be sitting at a Starbucks using their public internet and access whatever applications you need. At the same point, it's also got to a point where even computers like desktops and laptops are starting to really morph into being not needed any longer. And all you need is really a tablet, whether it be an Apple tablet or Droid tablet, some sort of tablet that really has no moving parts, but you can basically, as long as you have an internet connection, you can access it anytime, anyplace, anywhere, to the point where these are smartphones. So you can now access those particular technologies via an app, an application or app that you download to your phone, and can go ahead and even browse and access those applications. A lot of cloud applications get served up through a some sort of browser, and a browser in this case could be the Internet Explorer, could be Chrome. It's essentially an application. So applications have moved from the old-fashioned, being very programmer centric, and you had to be a programmer to put these things on. Not that you don't have to be with applications that exist in the on an internet, but it's much easier to develop those and much easier to deliver those. In one shape or form, we all are using some sort of cloud technology in our everyday lives. I mentioned the phone. If you're going onto Amazon to order, things like we all do, you're using the cloud. If you're using, some sort of app on your phone to access information about your car, or access your email, or access your calendar, you are using the cloud. So these are there are really two forms that have now evolved on the cloud. One is consumer centric, and that's probably one of the greatest aspects of it, because the consumer centric drives the masses. These are the apps, these are the things people use every day. If you have a Gmail account, you access a slew of different technologies that Google provides for you, and being applications, email, etc., calendar, those are all cloud apps. So that in concept is really what it is. So Christina, you had a question?
I do. Does it, in your opinion, is iPhone better to use than Android? My husband is, because I have an Android, and my husband is trying to convince me to get an iPhone. I've had an Android all of my cell phone life. So I don't know is it any easier with the iPhone or better? I guess maybe if you can convince me, because he hasn't been able to convince me yet.
Team Android here too.
Yeah, it's the age-old question. I get that often. Apple versus Android, and it really, in my opinion, it really becomes a personal preference. Okay. I will say this is that I think that the best way I heard it encapsulated once was that on the Apple side of things, they do keep you really in their universe. You're in their box. You really can't come out of their box too much. So whatever they're serving you up, whatever they're providing, you're basically in the Apple world. And there's a lot of great apps. There's a lot of great functionality on the Apple side. On the Android side, though, there tends to be a lot more flexibility to go outside of the box. And you'll find that there are typically some apps and or technologies that are there that are a little bit easier to build and also easier to serve up and have access to via a Droid. So it depends on how savvy you are and want to be. Some people really prefer the Apple because it's straightforward, it's intuitive, and the whole bit. Android can be that way, but also can be a little frustrating sometimes because it's built on an open architecture. So there's a lot more options that you can probably get yourself into than you would normally on an Apple side. That make sense?
Thank you. Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Yeah. So in essence, that's going back to the cloud conversation, that's effectively what the cloud is. Now, one of the questions I always get on a business perspective, what can I do from a business standpoint to embrace and harness the cloud? How can the cloud really help me with my business? And again, I said I would probably venture to say that you're using the cloud in some shape or form in your business today, whether it's small, medium, or large scale. But what I tend to tell our business partners, our customers, those that come inquiring, and especially when we start to architect some sort of solution, I often come into a business that, for example, has been in existence for a number of years. They have all of this equipment on site. They're using some older applications, and they've hit a point, they've grown fine, but they've hit a point where they just can't scale anymore. And by scaling, meaning they can't keep up, your demand can't keep up with their technology. They need the ability to expand. And they start to inquire, what can I do? They really are left with two choices. One, they take a look at what technology they have on site, and is there an ability to upgrade those in order to go to the either newer versions of applications or new versions of technology that'll help meet the demands for them to be able to grow their business. And most of the time when we look at that, and we oftentimes when we get into this discussion, they want to know, well, why can't I just have it here? That'll be cheaper. We typically can do an ROI, return on investment comparison between, well, if you went down this path, this is what your long-term investment is going to cost. And it's more than just the upfront expense. It's the ongoing maintenance of that. And at some point in time, you'll be faced either 3 to 5 years, that's usually the horizon. Every 3 to 5 years, you'll be faced with a refresh, meaning you'll have to replace a lot of that technology because it becomes out of date and in some cases no longer supported as well. So we do that against, well, what technologies do you need in your business to be able to grow? And we start to explore the cloud capabilities. So let's give you a use case. We have had I won't name the customer, but did have a customer where kind of that same scenario. Been around for a long time. In fact, they inherited from their father. So that's how old the business has been. And the father grew the business to a point where it was at, sons took it over, they're continuing to grow from there. But a lot of the technology that existed was from their father's day. And it was there, it worked. There was nothing wrong with it. It worked, it did what they needed to do. But they got forced into a decision point because their suppliers started to come and say, we're moving to the cloud. We're moving to serving up our applications and the way we interact with you via these cloud applications. So it started to create a situation where it was negating some of the information or technologies that they had on site in order for them to stay in business, to continue to interact with their suppliers and continue to interact with their customers. They needed to make a decision. How do we serve our customers better? Because their customers started to ask as well, hey, how can I just get online with you? How can I just want to send you an order and I want to see the status of my order. How can I do these things? And then you have the same kind of push from the supplier side and saying, well, we're going to interact with you in this way and you're going to have to use this application. However, we can integrate with you if you have the capabilities so we can kind of get those purchase orders from you and we can receive that, and you can also send us electronic payments and automatically and so forth. They did not have this capability. So in comes Telworx, and we come in to kind of analyze what they have, and we sat down over a series of discussions to figure out, what is it that you want to do? Where do you want to grow? What does this future look like? And we came back with some solutions that would help them grow. Here are some of the things we kind of threw at them. They had a very archaic phone system. They needed the ability to really communicate a lot more effectively. They needed the ability to have better routing of their calls because their call volume was going to increase. They needed to be able to easily, route things to the right person rather than have a receptionist there to send it off to the right person. They needed the ability to have take calls in the field very easily and not give out their cell phone number all the time, or as well as to some of their employees, to give out their personal cell numbers, because as they were concerned that as employees leave, they're going to, kind of take their customer base with them. So they wanted a secure way to do that. We came in and we proposed a cloud voice system or telephone system for them that gave them all of those abilities. No equipment on site except for the desk phone itself. And in some cases, some people didn't even have a desk phone. They loaded an application down into their smartphone or onto their computer, and they were instantly connected. And now, no matter where they were at, they were able to get a conversation going. The other thing that we did is that we consolidated them down into a Google email, more of a business email account or setup, where now we moved up to this point. They had a lot of equipment on site where they were storing files. They were, all of their important designs, all of their orders, everything, everything that they were saving was being saved locally. So for them to access that information, they had to come constantly into the office. And that was causing an issue, because if they're in the field, their customers started to get kind of a little tired of hearing, well, when I get back to the office, I'll get you this information, or I have it at the office and I can send it to you there. So we proposed moving them to a Google business account, and we helped them with that transition, because that's one of the things we do at Telworx as well. And not only which by the way, at this point, they had just random emails accounts that people had set up on Google, on Yahoo, and all of the other stuff. So nothing that was really branded to their company. It was all just individual personal accounts. We brought them together. Now they were able to control the emails from, for all their employees, issue them out. And not only that, but that gave them exposure to storage that was on the cloud. So we moved all of their applications, or all their files that they had locally, which by the way, their equipment was very, very outdated and was on its last leg. We moved all of those files over to their storage on their Google account. And now they can control who has access to what. So they were able to share directories of information with only select employees, and also with even individual employees could secure. And now they had the ability that in the field, they could access these files anytime, any place, anywhere. And from there, say they accessed a specification document on a product that they were selling or needed to give to the client. Well, from right there in the field, they said, I got it here. Let me show it to you. And let me email this to you right here and now. And through their corporate environment, their corporate email, they were able to send it off. The Google application also gave them access to a bunch of their Google apps, Google Sheets, the Docs, which are their, it's really their version of Office for basic things, basic spreadsheets, basic letters, things like that. Works fantastic. A lot of people, companies only need that. They don't need a full-on Microsoft, Excel or Word, because they just do simple things. And these apps now gave them the ability to create applications or create, spreadsheets really, really quickly, access them, even put in some numbers and, do some calculations, what have you. So it gave them a plethora of information from that perspective. The other thing was their accounting system. And their accounting system was on site. They were using QuickBooks. And we encouraged them to move to the QuickBooks Online. They went to the cloud. And we helped them with that process. They moved their entire accounting system online to the QuickBooks. And now the owners love this, because now they didn't have to stay at the office late, to do payroll, to do, close up the books, etc. They could actually go home, have dinner with their family, and go into their home office after everything was done and kind of finish up, where in the past they had to stay late all the time, and it was just getting frustrating and bleeding into family time. These are just some examples of some things that we did with them, which, by the way, in addition to this, we also were able to help them with deployment of the, some tools that their supplier was providing for their sales team to access it securely via their mobile apps and even tablets, anyplace, anytime, anywhere, so that now they could actually take orders in the field rather than coming back to the office like they used to, and they would sit on the computer to get the orders going, or trying to fire off an email to some order taker to get this order into play. So it accelerated their ability to grow. And the good part about this is that all that equipment that used to exist there reduced down to really only phone sets that were on the desktop, the internet modems, that were because they had to have internet in the office, and really there's what we call switches where all their networks were, or the computers were plugged into. And for the most part, you know, a lot of people were accessing that via Wi-Fi. So it became much easier. Now, the benefits here is it's very secure. You know, they didn't have any, you know, issues with accessing this information, which an unknown benefit that they reaped from all of this, as we kind of all experienced, when COVID hit and a lot of businesses had to shut down, because they already had this all set up, they easily made the transition to completely work from home without missing a beat. They were done. So they just said, oh, okay, we got to shut down because of the mandates. We're working from home, and they continued to do business, everybody in their respective areas. And now because they were able to access it any place, anytime, anywhere, and they made that transition. Huge, huge benefit, which hit everybody by surprise, right? When all of this happened. And on the opposite of that, we had customers calling us scrambling, saying, what are we going to do? You know, you know, we can't, all our information is on site. Well, you know, we gave them some advice because that was a difficult situation to be in, to not be able to access their information. So that's a little bit of a use case of the cloud scenario. So I'm going to pause with that. I've been talking for a while there to kind of make you a presentation on the cloud and see if there's any other questions.
Nope, I don't have any questions.
Okay, doesn't look like a lot. I'm going to jump in here and just give Jesus a break for a moment, just so that he can catch his breath, and throw out a question that I've had asked of me several times, which is just, you know, how secure is the cloud, and, you know, is it really secure enough for me to use with my business? And a lot of times when I get questions like that, you have to step back and answer it with another question, which can sometimes seem really annoying, but compared to what? And I could spend a lot of time thinking up elaborate scenarios where you could say the cloud is not nearly as secure as X. But the reality of it isn't about making up some crazy hypothetical scenario where, you know, it just for the point of saying that the cloud isn't secure, I can't use the cloud in my business. But practically, we want to take a look at the cloud versus really what it comes down to, your current environment, and compare those two to see whether there's actually a benefit to moving to the cloud or not. That's really the question that we're trying to answer at Telworx most of the time for our clients. So a couple of additional considerations to what Jesus has already mentioned. One is the actual security, and when I'm talking about security, physical security. So if you have all of your technology on your premises at your office, that means that you have to protect it all the time, 24/7, not just during the 8 or 9 hours that you're at that business. So we're talking about things like door locks, alarms, cameras, you know, possibly security guards and a physical presence, not to mention some sort of physical barrier to make it inconvenient for people to get to your business. And a lot of those elements can be missing because, frankly, one, they're a pain in the neck, two, they're really expensive, and three, the more security you start putting in place, the more difficult you make it for people to actually come and do business with you. When you go to a cloud provider, they are specifically set up to take all of those things into account. They're going to have the security that is dedicated strictly to keeping all of your information safe, both physically and from any sort of virtual or online attack. You know, they're not going to be, you know, right on the street corner where everyone's going to drive by and be able to physically see or access the building. They're going to be set back a little bit, you know, in a little bit less convenient of a location, as well as having several different physical safeguards in place to make sure that the only people who are going to get access to your information are the people that should have it. And that's not going to be very many people. So that's, those are a couple of other things that we want to keep in mind when we're talking about cloud, and how secure is it, and can it really be helpful for my business? Another example I like to use is if you did have a break-in in the middle of the night, someone came in and took all of the computers and servers out of your office. I know it sounds crazy, and it's probably that type of scenario wouldn't completely happen, but realistically, someone could break in and steal a laptop or possibly a server. What does that do for you? How far back does that set you if you lose some physical hardware? If everything's on premise, that can be devastating to your business. If you at least have it backed up to the cloud, you have an additional copy of that data and that information. Well, you've still lost the hardware. You haven't lost your data, although you're probably going to have, you may have it at risk at that point because someone else has gotten a copy of it. But at least you still have a copy of it as well. And even better, if you are running things strictly from the cloud, as Jesus mentioned earlier, cloud servers, cloud desktops, those sorts of things where none of the data is actually stored locally. People go ahead and break in, and they are going to get a piece of hardware that really doesn't have a lot of use for them because there isn't any valuable information on it. So go ahead and you can have that piece of hardware, but that's all you're going to get. Christy, question.
I have a question on how, so you're saying that the cloud is safer so that you can avoid that ransom that's been happening, that they get into your computer and hold it for ransom until you pay? That's avoidable on the cloud. Is that what you said?
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Ransomware, okay. that's going to actually be an entire topic that we do we look at in a couple of months, because that is a huge issue for all businesses really, and it's gotten to the point where it's not a question of if, but when you're going to be attacked by get hit with some sort of ransomware attack. It may not necessarily be effective depending on the systems that you have in place, but it's really just it's getting that prevalent that it's not if but when, and we will get to that more. But since you bring it up, having using cloud services properly can help significantly mitigate the impact of a ransomware attack, and even eliminate a lot of the effectiveness. The way a ransomware attack works, as you've already started to mention, Christy, is an intruder gets into your network and at some point they encrypt all of your data or some portion of your data, and they hold the encryption key, you don't, which means you can't unlock it. And allegedly, the only way to get it is to pay the ransom and then they give you the key. I say allegedly because you don't actually have any guarantee other than the word of a criminal that they're actually going to give it all back to you and give it back to you the same way that it was before. And you have to trust them that they haven't put in any other sort of malicious mechanisms that aren't still monitoring or doing anything else nefarious in your network. So it gets to be really, really messy and sticky in a bad situation. However, if you are doing things like keeping cloud backups and doing it in a way that one segments your backup from the rest of the active data so that a malicious attack doesn't affect that backup, and keeps it safe from being infected, you have less of a concern about recovery because you can go to that backup. So that's a
Like
short
a second
answer.
backup?
Say again?
Like a second backup?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Going back to the other point I was making, I was making more reference to a physical intrusion where someone, and because I know you well enough to know exactly where you work, someone comes in, kicks in that front door, or comes in through a side window and decides to grab the laptop off of your boss's desk and take off with it. Well, if everything is stored physically on his laptop, and he doesn't have any sort of backup off-prem, then all that data is gone and lost, along with the laptop.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Does that answer your
Thank you.
question?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
John, I have a question.
Sure.
So let's say, again, like someone steals, like let's say I have my laptop, someone steals my laptop. I have everything backed up on the cloud.
Mhm.
Is there a way that maybe through the cloud or some way where I can kind of set it like in a simpler way, a self-destroy, delete everything on what I have on my computer, knowing I have it on the cloud?
Yes, there are abilities for that. And, it takes, there are different angles for that. Most of it is driven by an application that gets installed on your system so that the minute they connect to the internet, it's kind of in an alert mode, and it receives that signal to be able to wipe out the directories that you've designated. It's a common practice, especially with kind of what we call mobility or mobile security that a lot of companies use that issue a lot of laptops and as well as mobile phones and so forth. That's one way to do it. There's another method which is really encryption and encrypting the hard drive, if you would, which again is another application layer that sits on top of the computer. So that before Windows even pops up, there's a login that comes into play, which encrypts all of the data in there. And you have to bypass that gate in order to step through the rest of the gates of your startup of getting your application up and running. In some cases, that is more than enough because they have to, whoever steals your laptop, has to have your key, like John was explaining, to decrypt your files and everything that's on the computer. At that point in time, it becomes kind of a local self-destruct, if you would, because if they really want to use the laptop, the only way they can use it is to completely reformat the drive, or basically dump that hard drive and put in a new one and just keep the computer. So that's another methodology in which you can do something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Stephen, so that is, again, if you have everything on the local hard drive of your laptop. And as Jesus and I have mentioned a couple times now, implementing a cloud-based desktop, what people will refer to, you'll hear referred to in a couple different ways. And technically, there are some slight differences between virtual desktop environment or infrastructure, or desktop as a service. But what those two implementations both provide is a desktop that is set up on a server, again, somewhere behind, big gates and walls, and has security guards and biometrics, locks and everything that keep everyone out so that people can't get at those servers. And now you are, whether you're on a laptop or that tablet or even your phone, you access that same desktop regardless of where you are. And if you lose the device, you lose the device, but you don't lose that desktop, and that is still protected because it's on that cloud server. So
Exactly.
that's another aspect, and just another way to kind of look at things. when you're considering, using especially mobile devices.
No, thank you, John. Yeah, I deal with a lot with the mobile devices, and just out of curiosity, it's like, is there such a thing as a self-destruct? Obviously, trying to have as many layers of security when it comes to your technology is important. So that's why I wanted to know what are the different options, and what's what, when it comes to those options.
So to kind of add on to John's statement, one of the beauties of having kind of that remote desktop and having your applications in the cloud. This is I stepped away because I wanted to grab this. This is my Chromebook, my Google Chromebook, and you can see probably how thin it is. Looks like a little laptop, but it's a Chromebook, and it's has a keyboard and has a screen and so forth. But there's no hard drives on here. There's no fans on here. Nothing. It's just a Chromebook. The majority of the time now, I've moved to basically accessing everything that I do on this Chromebook rather than on a laptop. I still have a laptop, and I have a laptop that I use majority of the time in my office, because I have a handful of applications that are Windows centric that I need to use on Windows that would not serve itself up on a Chromebook very well. But all of the day-to-day things that I do, I basically can access it from that Chromebook. Much easier to carry around and much more secure. If I ever lost that Chromebook for some reason, wouldn't be worried one bit, because they couldn't get into it. They couldn't hack into it. They could just reset it, and now they have a free Chromebook. But all of my applications are someplace else, and I can easily access that from either another desktop. I could even use somebody else's desktop or Chromebook to access my applications very easily.
So all this to say, Stephen, you have a ton of options available for you, in addition to a self-destruct mechanism for your laptop and your data if it ever is compromised.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Have we scared everyone into silence?
No, it was good though. I learned a lot.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So as we're kind of getting close to the top of the hour, we appreciate everybody being on. How can Telworx help you is what it really boils down to. What we do is we leverage a lot of the experience I have and we have to be those architects for you and your advisor. One of the things we do offer is a free kind of evaluation of your current environment and come up with some suggestions. Keep in mind this is that really as the chief architect for the organization, you're getting somebody who's a CIO, CTO background, 40 years of experience, coming free of charge to you to help provide an architecture or recommendations on what you can do to help bring efficiencies to your organization, help set you up for further success in scaling and growing your business, and maybe even introduce some cost savings, as well as set you up so that you can continue to expand your business. And that's something we want to offer to each and every one of you. And if you're interested in that, we'd love to sit down. There's no obligation to it. It's just an opportunity to get an evaluation of what your present circumstances are, and if there's an opportunity where we can help you. And if there is, we can bring some solutions to the table and show you what potentially can you can take advantage of to help your business continue to grow.